Welcome back to the Cinema Club podcast. My name is Christopher Amick, and I'll be your host for today's episode. The Cinema Club is like a book club, but for movies. Every episode, Nick Leach or myself invite one member of the Cinema Club to be a co-host for the episode who will choose a movie or television show and join Nick or myself on the podcast to talk about the film or episode. Today, we are doing something a little bit different. We are going to be covering MCU TV series on Disney+. And all the shows we're talking about today definitely have aspects we can celebrate, but also moments that are worth their criticism. And when it comes to the shows we're discussing today, we are only going to be talking about the multi-chapter narrative MCU shows on Disney+. So we're going to be leaving out I Am Groot, Werewolf by Night, and also the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. So we're going to be covering Moon Knight, What If, WandaVision, Hawkeye, Secret Invasion, Loki, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier today. And I also did want to share that we are going to be going into spoilers about these shows. Today I am joined by both John and Jesse. We had a lot of fun covering Secret Invasion, and one of the ideas that got brought up while we've been working together the last few weeks was doing this episode. So we're going to be going one by one, just starting at the bottom of our rankings, working our way to the top. And we're just going to be talking about how they did and didn't work for us and just have fun with ranking them against one another. And for those listening, please let us know your ranking of the multi-chapter narrative MCU shows on Disney. With all that being said, who wants to start out with their MCU show that they feel struggled the most?
So it was kind of actually hard for me to decide which ones were at the bottom because once I started getting past the ones I really love, the rest I didn't like for reasons and I did like them for reasons. But this one might surprise people because the Captain America IP is my favorite and Captain America is synonymous with Jesse. But coming in at number 9 for me is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I wanted to like it so bad. I wanted to like it so bad because these two characters are carrying on the legacy of my favorite character. And that is the aspect I liked of the show. They did a really good job in exploring both of them coming to terms with losing Steve and the grief they're going through with that and with everything that happened in the blip and the post blip and even before that. So there are elements of the show that are good. And I love that Sam gets to become Captain America at the end. I love that he didn't want to be Captain America and he went through that full arc. Loved all of that. It's just the story was terrible for me. The main story throughout. There are small moments that are great, but the overarching story throughout just felt super flat. And I felt like all it was this action flick. And I watch the MCU not for the action, and I do watch it for the story. So after hearing that rumor that there was a pandemic storyline that they decided to scrap and trying to decide how that would have fit in for me. I wish that would have happened because I think it would have made it better. But yep, that's my bottom.
Yeah, for whatever it's worth, I decided just for fun before this to guess where you guys ranked it. And I know a little bit more of your experience with the MCU, Justin, because we've talked a little bit before doing the show. But Chris, I have no idea. So yours was just random, basically. But yeah, for you, Jess, like I guess Falcon and Winter Soldier, I kind of was like, yeah, she's a huge Cap fan. And I think she's going to be disappointed that they didn't quite do it right.
It is interesting because in this conversation, I wanted to talk about Rotten Tomatoes rankings of these shows as well. And the Falcon Winter Soldier, that one does rank towards the bottom of the list, according to Rotten Tomatoes. That one is number 7 with an 84% score. So it sounds like you're not totally alone in that takeaway, Jesse.
Well, and to be fair, out of a lot of the different series, I actually liked the last episode of this one fairly decently, whereas I've struggled with the final episode of some of the other ones. So yeah, they've had their moments for sure.
And what about you, John? What was your number 9?
All right. So for me, my number 9 was She-Hulk. So She-Hulk just like for the positives, I don't remember the actress's name, but the actress who plays She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters, I think is her name, or the character's name anyway. I thought her acting was really good. It's always fun seeing Wong. He's all great actor. It's always great seeing Bruce Banner in the MCU. And then there's a couple funny moments in it, and I think that's all the positives I have to say about it. Like, it just didn't work for me. I thought it was the worst writing in the MCU, almost in a trolley way, where it felt like they knew there would be some backlash from the show, and so they intentionally made it worse in order to be able to make fun of the fans for not liking the show. Like, there's a couple of those kind of jokes near the end of it that, like, this is really weird. And I don't know how spoiler we want to get with this.
Yeah, this is a spoiler discussion for sure.
I
Yeah.
found it was the worst final episode of any of them. Like, the whole breaking the fourth wall. Let's have a really generic, over the top, terrible finale. And then let's be like, see, isn't it dumb how terrible our finale is? And it's like, yeah, it is dumb, guys. I agree. It just didn't work. And I get what they were trying to go for with there's certain things that women have to deal with because of sexism that men don't have to deal with. But for her to be like, you, Bruce Banner, the guy who's been hunted as a monster for decades of your life, can't understand being catcalled. I was like, what? It just felt like that's the wrong character to be like, you don't understand what it's like to have people hate you and look at you differently because of who you are. Like, the Hulk's like the person who probably understands that more than any other character. And so just some stuff like that. It's like, I kind of get what you're going for, but just none of it landed for me at all. Like, it just didn't work. It's the only show on here that I actively dislike. I know we're trying to be positive, but that's the one show that I actively dislike. The rest I like to some extent, even though some of them I was disappointed with, but that one just didn't work. For me, if you guys like it, great. I'm happy for you.
No, it's interesting because I definitely think it's a very polarizing show. And I didn't watch it as it was coming out. I just binged it all literally in, I think, a day or two. So I probably had a different experience than watching it weekly, but it was very meta. And I could definitely see how the writing was either going to really work or really not going to work for people. But kind of on the same train of thought here with Jesse, the She-Hulk Attorney at Law show is number 8 on Rotten Tomatoes with 80%. So it didn't work for most people. So you're not alone in that feeling, John. And so I guess it brings me to my number 9. I feel like you guys are not going to agree with this at all. But my number 9 is What If.
Okay.
For me, it just didn't feel like it had some of the same weight as some of the other MCU shows. And to be completely transparent, I honestly struggled big time to even get through the show. I was majorly struggling. And it just didn't feel very impactful, I guess. I enjoyed some of the episodes, like the zombies episode was pretty cool. I really enjoyed the Doctor Strange episode. That's probably my favorite of the whole series. But then you had like episodes like the Thor one where I was like, what is going on? It just wasn't working for me personally. Like, maybe for like little kids, it might work, but it wasn't landing for me personally. But what was interesting when I was looking into this is What If has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's number 2 on the list. So definitely going against the grain a little bit, I guess, in regard to the public on that one. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting to kind of introduce the variants and alterations in the MC timeline before we actually kind of got into the multiverse.
How much of it not feeling impactful do you think it was that it was a cartoon versus all the rest of the MCU's been live action?
That's a good question. I didn't really think about that aspect. I mean, when it comes to like Star Wars, I still feel the Clone Wars TV show is super impactful, at least for me personally. So I don't think it was the animation aspect as much as it just kind of felt more goofy, I guess. It didn't feel like, oh, this is the real deal. This is happening. Oh, these are stories that would have maybe happened, basically. And so that's why I wasn't as engaged with it. I'm like, oh, this isn't the actual MCU. If that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I was just like, that's fair.
Oh, no, I was just going to say they could have done a better job at marketing it and establishing it in the first episode that this is part of the MCU, but these are alternate things that could have happened. Because I think,
Sure.
I mean, no spoilers for our lists, but I do like What If. I won't say where it is in the list, but in my circle, I really did have to convince people to watch it. So I think the awareness of the show and the hype that these shows usually get before the show drops just wasn't there for that show. And they didn't do necessarily a good job of explaining. They could have had a little bit more of a monologue with the watcher at first of him explaining it to the casual viewers, because it very much felt like a show that was for us people that are obsessed with it and just can't get enough of MCU content, so we don't care what it looks like.
Well, and they're making more seasons of it too. So I guess that does also answer the question again with Rotten Tomatoes too. Like, oh, was it actually something that people watched? I don't know if I'll be watching those at least right away. But yeah, with that being said, what was your number 8, Jesse?
It was Hawkeye.
Mine too.
Great. I feel bad because I feel Hawkeye this is the definition of his character within the MCU. He's just not
Yes.
anyone's favorite. My mom likes him, but I think that's just because she likes Jeremy Renner. I don't know if she loves the character or not. The best thing about this show was Rogers the Musical. That was in the first 5 minutes of the show. So we started way up here, and then we just
Nosedive the rest of the show.
Yeah. I did like revisiting the Battle of New York. I like seeing that different perspective of someone who is actually in the battle, like during the battle, and she's a little kid at that point. This is an impactful moment to her. Like that aspect of it was super cool. Everything else, trash. It was boring, I feel like.
Yeah.
I did like the introduction of Kingpin. Loved that. Let's go. Vincent D'Onofrio in that part is just amazing. I love Zahn McClarnon. So when I saw him as Echo's dad, I was like, ooh, okay. He's amazing. He's hilarious as an actor. And if you haven't seen Reservation Dogs on Hulu, everybody should watch that show. Zahn McClarnon is fantastic in it. He's hilarious. And it's just a beautiful show. So not Hawkeye, but Reservation Dogs. Go watch Reservation Dogs on Hulu. But yeah, Hawkeye's my number 8.
I almost started Reservation Dogs 5 days ago, but I didn't.
Oh.
So I'll have to circle back to that one then.
So good.
Yeah, I honestly thought Haley Steinfeld was great as Kate Bishop
Yes.
in the show.
Agreed.
I couldn't relate to her character at all. Like she's growing up very well off, kind of has this now I can do whatever I want attitude, which kind of turned me off a little bit to her character. I'm not gonna lie. But then I also have always thought Hawkeye himself is a weaker character. And as you were kind of hinting at a little bit, Jesse, the show didn't make me feel indifferent about that. I think I've shared before, I love Florence Pugh, and I thought she was the best thing about the whole show for me personally. But even with her Yelena character, it couldn't save it for me. And then I didn't love the B plots and the supporting cast throughout the show either. Like even Fisk's character was weird.
Yeah.
Like it was honestly pretty bad.
I like that he's now in the MCU. I like
Sure.
his character reveal, but that's as far as it went. I'm glad, okay, this is our official introduction to him, but that's where it stops. I loved Yelena, and I like revisiting the impactful moments in the MCU, so seeing her go through the blip and rematerializing, great.
Best
That-
episode for me.
Exactly. Question for all of you. One of the episodes, I think it was towards the end, well, and in moments throughout, Max and I kept looking at each other and getting really uncomfortable because there are moments where it seems like Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld, like they're two characters as their characters, like Hawkeye and Kate Bishop.
If you remember.
And there was a kind of near the end, there was this one episode where they're sitting, it was on the verge of uncomfortable. Their chemistry was not
good.
dad and daughter chemistry. It was like romantic chemistry. And then she comes to their house at the end, and I just don't like it. But maybe that was just Max and I. Maybe we were just reading into it. But some of their lines were like, why would you say that? That doesn't seem platonic to me. I don't know. Maybe she's just looking for a dad figure because whatever. But it just, I don't know. It made me uncomfortable.
I didn't pick up on those vibes, but that is interesting that you did. And yeah, I liked Wilson Fisk in the Netflix Daredevil show, but I did not like his character at all in this. And then Echo's introduction to the MC was interesting. It was something that I had heard about. I was interested in seeing, but it, at least seeing her character in the show, it wasn't making me super excited for her own show coming out next year.
I feel like that's another problem it had is they tried to do too much with it. Like
Yeah,
you're
all the B
already-
plots didn't work.
Exactly. You're already introducing a brand new character. You've already got Kate Bishop. Leave it at that. Don't try and also introduce Echo and try and introduce this and try to bring Yelena in there. I love Yelena. Let's have Yelena in everything. But if you already also have a billion other characters you're working with, maybe pick
Yeah.
one or two, deep dive into them, B plots don't work.
John's just sitting over here like, man, Hawkeye's my number one. These guys are passionate.
No,
No. Go ahead, John.
I did definitely have not that I don't think any of your criticisms or opinions are valid. They definitely are. Like we're all entitled to our own opinion, but mine's just very different on the show than your guys's. But that's all right.
It's going to be like that because it makes our lists more interesting. If we have the same list the whole time, this is going to be a really boring show.
Well, and Hawkeye is number 4 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's 92%. It's rated very high out of these 9 shows. But yeah, what was your number 8, John?
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Okay.
So I thought it was the buddy cop type vibe between the two potential Captain America replacements, Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I thought it was really fun. Both of them are really good actors. I think I liked both of them better as sidekicks. And when they actually kind of are leading a show, I feel like their characters are just kind of that level of character, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I thought they explored some interesting issues and stuff. I thought it was cool how they tied it in with Baron Zemo, even the introduction of Elaine from Seinfeld's character. What's her name?
Oh, I just had it. Nope, it's gone.
But just as kind of this sketchy person who's kind of building a team of anti-heroes, like that's a fun vibe. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that in the future.
Yeah.
But it's like, it definitely had moments that worked. I thought the first episode was really fun. I thought some of the other episodes in the middle worked. But ultimately, I think the MCU, a lot of these shows have a villain problem where like pre-Thanos, not all, but most of the villains felt really generic in the MCU. And now post Thanos, it's like, okay, we cracked the code with Thanos where every villain has to be sympathetic. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. The thing for me, like probably lowers it the most was the villain in this because they have the super soldier serum, but we're not really sure why that's a big deal. Like, why is it so bad that this group has it? Obviously, you don't want a bunch of random people getting super soldier serum, but they don't really seem like they're doing anything that villainous. They seem like they're more kind of a local gang doing a little bit sketchy stuff, but nothing that should have 2 Avengers going after them. And then in the finale, they commit an act of terrorism. And that's the thing that makes them sympathetic, where Falcon gives that speech about we need to not call them terrorists. That's like they committed terrorism. It was to me. That part did not work at all. I don't know. So it felt flat overall. Like I was a show that I was really excited about. I thought like, man, these 2 characters are really cool. It'll be cool to see who's going to become Captain America. That's an interesting idea. Which of these 2 guys, they both have like reasons why. Obviously we knew Sam would because of Endgame, but it had so much potential. And then this is one of the ones that disappointed the most because I had really high expectations and it just fell flat overall for me.
Agreed. Her name is Valentina. That's her name.
Thank you.
I finally remembered it.
Yeah, I liked her character.
For you all, what did you think of the infamous shield decapitation scene in Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Yeah, so that's another thing that was weird for me because it was like he lost his temper in the moment. Both played like he did something absolutely horrific, and you're like, this guy was literally, even if he didn't personally kill his friend, like he was with the people that helped kill his friend and were trying to kill him. Like him beating the guy up with his shield looks terrible, but it's like an overreaction, but it's not something I thought was absolutely egregious considering the high stakes conflict they're in the middle of.
Yeah, I think it definitely felt like more of a public execution just with the social media aspect. And also, it would have been different, I think, for me if he wasn't supposed to be the next Captain America. Because that isn't how Cap went about business, typically, from my understanding.
Yeah, like he's a much more restrained, noble character. And this guy's, it's like if you would have given just a random soldier the serum instead of giving Steve Rogers the serum originally. What did you think about that, Jesse?
I go back and forth because personally, I hate it. I cried when that happened because Cap means so much to me and the symbol of that shield means a lot to me. And to see it used in such a way, I feel like if he had just beat him up with it, fine, that's one thing. But the fact that he did, and you see in the shot, you see him pick the shield back up and it's just dripping in blood. I was like, oh, that's too much. That is too much for me. But on the other hand, I'm like, okay, at least the MCU went there because they've been accused of not being very serious. They've been accused of being too light. But maybe that's their audience. Maybe MCU movies are movies that are okay to take your 60-year-old to, and DC movies are okay to take your 14-year-old to. Like, maybe know your audience, I guess. I don't know. I go back and forth. It was shocking, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when it comes to number 7, where are you at that with that, John?
Oh, my number 7?
Yeah.
So 7 for me was Secret Invasion, the one we just reviewed together.
Me too.
All my
Okay.
friends are Secret Invasion haters, apparently. Or not haters, like not as big of fans. And for me, I feel it was very much an MCU Disney Plus show where the first few episodes had a lot of intrigue, very cool start, like made me more excited for the show. And then it kind of started to go off the wheels somewhere in 4 or 5, somewhere around there. And then by the end, I'm just like, oh, that was the finale. That was it. I felt like the stuff that happened after the climax, that was kind of the post-allude to it, should have been episode 2 or 3. And then like we explore what the ramifications of that are with the rest of the series. So like, yeah.
That's a good summarization of my thoughts. It kind of fell off after episode 4 for me as well. And then Jesse and I were kind of talking about, oh, it was such a great show with setting up and then answering questions. And then that just did not happen towards the end of the show at all.
I pretty much have nothing to add to what either of you say. It's also my number 7. I started, like, it was basically a textbook mountain for me because I started off down at the bottom of the mountain, not even excited for it at all. And then episode 1, I was like, okay, this is all right. Episode 2, I was like, okay, actually, this is amazing. 3 and 4 sustained that amazingness. And then 5 and 6 were hurtling back down the mountain into a crashing, burning fire. Yep, there it is.
Yeah, I went into it with high expectations. And so the first couple episodes were confirming what I thought the show would be, because just on a little bit smaller scale. Because I don't know, like I've had this problem ever since Endgame with the MCU. Like Infinity War and Endgame were so big and epic. And I'm like, this is what I love about the MCU is how big and connected it all feels. And then I keep hoping that a lot of these shows and movies, well, like I wanted Doctor Strange and the multiverse to be huge, and it wasn't. And I haven't read the comic books, but I know in the comic books, everybody's involved. There's all sorts of Avengers and all these other heroes that get involved in its craziness. And it was like, there was no heroes there. There was no superpowered heroes other than like the Skrulls.
Yeah, we talked about that for 6 weeks. So anybody wants to listen to us talk about that, they can definitely do so. But
That's plug.
go listen to the show we didn't really enjoy that much. What was your number 6, Jesse?
Miss Marvel. was
Mine
my-
too.
Same.
Okay.
There we go. It's not my bottom, not my top. I wanted to love it. I was so excited for Iman Vellani because she is me. Like, she's just a fangirl who likes Marvel and happens to show up for an audition and got the part. It made me believe that I could do it too, or anyone like me, or anyone like us. I also do like the Miss Marvel character, so I was like, oh, this will be exciting to see what they do with it and where they take it. I think the cast did a great job. Like, her friend, I forget his name, was good. Her family is fantastic. Like, all of them are so good, and she's really good. It's just the writing wasn't super great. I did like the subplot of the partition and the time traveling back to the partition. I think that is what the MCU is good at. The MCU is good at making everyone feel like this character or this story is for them, and they're really good at those emotional scenes. So I liked that. The villains just didn't hit well enough for me. The stakes were very high. It felt like the story wasn't really going anywhere, I guess. And if you're gonna leave it zoomed in as a character study, great, but leave it there. Don't act like it's gonna be something big and then not deliver. Just like these other shows, just like Secret Invasion and stuff, don't lead up to something and then not get there. If you're gonna make it feel like it's leading up to something, have something there for us. Don't, this is high, and then that's the end of the series, and you're like, oh, Okay. I really liked her familial support system. I think that was a neat thing to show in the show. Like, my heart almost exploded when her dad showed up to go to the Comic-Con with her dressed as Hulk. Like, oh, that's so cute. It was so cute, and I want more of that. That's adorable, and I love it. It felt like it was something for Gen Z, which I appreciated because I was like, yay, they're bringing in more MCU fans. So it wasn't awful, but I had to put something at number 6. So here we are.
Yeah, that's true. Like I said, you got to put something there, and that was your experience with it. I definitely agree that I really felt the villains in this show were some of the weakest in the MCU that we've had. But I really enjoyed the show, honestly. It's been a little bit since I was a kid, and I think this showed me what it might be kind of like growing up as a teenager in today's world while also becoming a superhero. And like you said, she's fighting for her family, her community, her hometown. She's the underdog, and she's going up against the odds. You kind of touched on it too, Jesse, but I also really enjoyed that this show also informed me of a culture that I wasn't very familiar with. I didn't know a whole lot about Muslim culture. And this show really brought me into that world a little bit and the whole family dynamics. And then, like you said, that very specific episode really brought me back to a large event that I knew very little about, to be transparent. And that really tied beautifully into the present. So yeah, I really thought that whole aspect was super cool. And then the reveal at the end that Kamala is a mutant, that was also really so yeah, like I said, it had to put something at number 6, and it is Miss Marvel for me, just because I wasn't on the edge of my seat waiting for the next episode to drop at midnight personally with this one, but I really had a nice time with it.
Yeah, for me, this was a show I thought about skipping initially because just the advertisement for it, like the trailers I saw, it looked like a Disney Channel TV show to me. I'm like, that's great, but I'm not 10. And so I just thought this is just a show made for a much younger, less mature audience, and that's fine, but it just didn't look like it appealed to me at all. And then I had a friend tell me, no, it's actually really good. So I went and watched it. This is a show that one of the few shows that was actually better than I anticipated, in my opinion. Like, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. There was some issues with the villains, like none of them were all that felt kind of cartoonish at times. I didn't really like the dynamic with Red Dagger, I think is his name, didn't do a lot for me. It's kind of, I loved her personality and like Miss Marvel's personality. I think the actress did a great job with her. I didn't know that she was just a fan who walked on an audition. That's super cool to know. Good for her. I loved it. Like, I thought that was super fun. But yeah, when you're talking about like dad showed up as Hulk to go to the Avengers party with her, like that was really just a classic dad. Like, he loves me, but he's so embarrassing type moment. And I loved it. And I loved I don't even know what you call it, but the animation style where they would show like almost like a comic book vibe with how they would show different words popping up on the screen. Like, I wish they would have continued that because they kind of went away from it in the last few episodes, if I remember right. But I loved it. It was a fun, unique style. And I felt it was a bit split where it was too short of a season, I thought, to try to have like her origin story plus do all this stuff over in Pakistan and India with the split of the country. I felt that would have made it better like season 2 where they really explored that more. So there's like some flaws for me, but overall, it was a fun show. I liked it overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people did. That is the number 1 MCU show on Rotten Tomatoes.
Really?
Yeah,
Number 1.
98%. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
People love that one. And I forgot I didn't mention Secret Invasion's Rotten Tomatoes score. Let me scroll all the way down the bottom here. Number 9, 64.
Wow.
And the last 2 episodes got hammered on pretty badly. I mean, deservedly so, in my opinion. But yeah, it's interesting that a lot of us are having similar thoughts on a lot of these shows so far with their ranking system. But yeah, who wants to share that number 5?
Oh, I guess I can. So
Okay.
number 5 for me was Moon Knight. I liked Moon Knight. All right. Like, this was not a character I was very familiar with at all, but like it worked for me overall. I thought, what's his name? Isaac something, the actor who plays him. I thought he was phenomenal. I thought the dynamic of like, we're not really sure what's going on as the audience. Well, unless you've read the comic books, but those of us who are kind of ignorant on the character, like we're kind of unsure what was going on, and the characters figuring out stuff as the audience is figuring out stuff is a fun way to do it. I love the opening song. Not that that's a great reason to like a show, but it just really worked for me.
No, me too.
Like, I was always like, ooh, it just always got me in the mood to watch it when I would hear the song at the beginning. Like, there were some issues with it. The biggest issue for me about it is I just felt like the Egyptian gods that they're introducing are like, these guys are way too powerful to just now be introducing. Like they've been on Earth for everything, and they were never like, hey, half of us would like to not be snapped. We're going to get involved.
Yeah.
Like how we're either ignorant or like unwilling to participate. Whichever one it was just odd with how powerful they set him up to be. I think it worked better as its own show than it works in the MCU, but I liked it. It was good.
Yeah, Oscar Isaac's performances, I should say, were incredible, honestly. And for me, I think the best performances in the MCU, period. Not just in the TV shows, but like the MCU. But that intro, it was the music in general always got me pumped up for Moon Knight, honestly. At this place, I do have She-Hulk. You do. Well, Jesse and I are just rolling through this. I'll keep mine brief. I struggle with some of the stuff in the middle of the show, honestly, but I really appreciated its humor, and I kind of liked the meta-ness of it. I thought the writing and acting was all pretty solid for me. I just think that all of it didn't quite land for me personally. I really liked how they utilized breaking the fourth wall also with the audience. I thought that was a cool aspect of it. But yeah, I enjoyed parts of it. It just didn't work for me all the way through the show.
Same. The middle episodes were not it for me. I do have a couple wishes for it that maybe would have made it higher up. I wish that they had, because it's called She-Hulk Attorney at Law. So I wish they had stayed more in court and lawyery stuff for more of it. Like I think Daredevil, the series on Netflix, did a good job of balancing, lawyer stuff and what's happening at night behind the scenes. Like I wish they had given us more of that instead of this weird, let me go off to this retreat for a couple episodes. They just felt like filler episodes to me. And I'm like, if you already have a short series, you don't need filler episodes. Like, you have time. You should use your time to tell the story instead of filling it with what felt very boring and nonsense. But I love the fourth wall breaking. Tatiana Maslany was fantastic in this.
Agreed. Yeah, she nailed it.
So good. She's so funny. All of the different dynamics with whatever character she's playing against, I felt was fantastic. Like, it was just good. I don't know how I feel about Kevin at the end. I was really excited for how meta it was getting, and I really liked her storming into Marvel Studios. I just didn't love then the idea that all of these stories I hold very near and dear to my heart are just a computer algorithm saying what's good. And now, especially, like, that came out, when did that come out? Last year? I don't know. 2 years? Who knows? Last summer, right? I think so. But anyways, but now it hasn't aged well because now we are fighting for AI rights. And no, AI cannot write good scripts. Like, they just can't. They might be able to write scripts, but they cannot write what a human can write. So that did not age well. So it was making me laugh so hard before the show even came out because people who normally don't even comment on these shows or care or whatever were coming out of the woodwork to yell and complain and whine that they had gender swapped Hulk. And I was like, guys, if you're going to complain about something, check first. She has been in existence in the comics since 1979. She is not a gender swapped Hulk. She is not the female version of Hulk. She's literally his cousin. She's a different character. They're not going, down with all men. We need to make all our beloved heroes female. That's not what's happening. Fact check first before you proclaim things on the internet. I don't know. It was just making me laugh because I was like, y'all are really revealing some stuff about yourselves.
What I liked is that meta-ness. I do remember as it was airing, it was controversial. Like, people were all over the place on this one. But I really liked that the character in the show was also dealing with that. I thought that was really an interesting, again, meta experience. And just the main character of the show having to deal with the world of men. And especially going through, what is it like to be a professional in the workplace? But then now I have superpowers. it was just really a unique take on an MCU TV show. And I think that's why I liked it so much, because I binged Hawkeye and then I binged this, and I was like a breath of fresh air for me.
Yeah.
But something different. It's something that, again, breaking the fourth wall is really unique. Also, I think this was 8 episodes, so it had a bit more fleshed out story. So I enjoyed it. And yeah, the season finale didn't quite work for me either, but I appreciate that what they were trying to do.
I think, again, it was another one that suffered from the building up to something or things feeling like they're going to be bigger than they are. Because I thought the intelligentsia was going to be a bigger storyline. I thought the super blood was going to be the main thing. And it just kind of like, oh, let's have this little battle about, I don't know.
I am interested to see how her character moves forward, though, in the end,
Me
for
too.
sure. Hulk sun reveal thing, that was weird. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, it was an interesting show for sure.
Yeah. His son wasn't a surprise to me because of his son in the comics. I didn't necessarily know they were going to introduce him now at the end of She-Hulk. I would have figured that would have been a movie reveal or something. But no, I think it was overall good.
Just to kind of wrap up my thought process on it too, it was weird to me that I was literally watching CGI girl for like half of the show. It kind of weirded me out sometimes. I'd be like, oh, wait, this is just
Yeah, the CGI
none of
was
this
not
is like a
great.
person. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it wasn't polished, I guess, as much as I'd like it to be. That was the other aspect that was kind of a fault, I guess, for me too. But yeah, I think it speaks to the fact that it was a different kind of experience though for us.
No, I'm glad you
I
guys loved it. Like, or did at least, like, even though it didn't work for me, but yeah.
Yeah, now we're getting to our top 4. We're getting into the good stuff here. John,
Yeah.
what was your number 4?
Oh, your least favorite one. What if?
Okay.
Same.
Okay.
Same.
Oh, interesting. Cool. Yeah. So what if for me, just like the 4 episodes, I agree that didn't work. There's a couple episodes in there that felt really light and inconsequential, but I love just the idea of them getting to tell these different stories. The what if T'Challa became Star-Lord? I love that episode. The fact that he got to voice act himself, it's his last MCU appearance. I thought it was just a really nice tribute. And it was really cool seeing this very noble, what if Star-Lord's dad had been this really upstanding guy that he had learned good morals from. And it was really touching. It was the best Doctor Strange movie we've had in the MCU, in my opinion. Like that Doctor Strange episode was the best Doctor Strange movie for me. Like it was so good. It was dark and gritty, and he really explored the psychology of what he was going through from loss, and it just really worked. I thought the Peggy Carter episode as Captain Britain was a fun one. I don't remember all the episodes off the top of my head, but like I thought all of them really worked. It was a show that wasn't supposed to all be tied together. It was supposed to be a bunch of one-off stories. And then they tied it all together in the last episode, and it really worked for me. I'm like, whoa, even though this felt like it should just be another episode, it had one of the best endings we've had in the MCU, the TV shows at least. And it works for me a lot. This is kind of the line for me, like everything on What If and above are shows I'll rewatch on my own. Like the rest I'd be willing to rewatch if someone else wants to with me. But like I started reading What If this last week because it's fun.
It's one of the ones that actually did have a good finale. Like it actually did pull together, and it wasn't even supposed to. So it's so good.
My number 4 is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I know you guys both had ranked lower. I really enjoyed how this show deals with grief in great ways. I mean, we get to see Bucky and why he wasn't the guy to take the shield. We get that answer here. And then we also get to see why Falcon is the right person to become Captain America. And then I also really enjoyed Zemo's character. I mean, that iconic club scene is great.
Yeah.
The one aspect I didn't really enjoy about Zemo was he teamed up with Bucky and Falcon immediately. And I'm still very distrustful of him. But I think he's literally the reason for Civil War happening. So I was like, oh, okay. And then, as you guys kind of talked about earlier, it was kind of a COVID juggling act. And as a result, the Flag Smashers were not really that great for me, honestly. But I do think the show really sets up a lot of interesting characters in the MCU moving forward. And for me, when I was looking back upon these shows, like you were kind of talking about, John, starting with this one, I'd be down to potentially rewatch these again.
I wanted to like the Flag Smashers because I thought the motivations behind why they even became a thing were really important to address. Yeah, this blip happened. People start adapting to that and living in people's homes. And now people blip back. I'm glad that it tried to tackle the ramifications of the blip because that was so impactful in so many ways. We don't even think about all the ways that would have affected the earth, other than when they do tell us in these properties. And so it was really neat for them to address that. And I wish they just would have taken it further. I wish they just would have honed in on it more because it ultimately became more about the super soldier serum than about the core beliefs anyways. I wish they would have kept going with that.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I like what you said, Chris, about how it took some time to explore grief with Bucky. It almost felt like he was going through like a 12 steps program or something where he was making amends and apologizing.
Mhm.
And if I remember right, doesn't he have this close relationship with the father of someone he kills? Like he kind of takes him under his wing.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that was really touching. I actually wish they would have explored that a little bit more. I think it would have been a little bit higher for me if they had. But yeah, that was a really nice point.
Yeah, I feel like it really touches on some great points, like being a black man in America or just having that buddy that is kind of into your sister. I felt the show did a really nice job of exploring some of those. And I think that's why I do have it ranked so high on my list. Who wants to share their number 3? Now we're getting to the good stuff.
My number 3 is Loki. I love
2.
Yeah, there you go. I loved everything about this series as a whole, so I don't have a ton to like talk about the ins and outs.
Sure.
They kept up such good momentum throughout, which is something some of these series struggle with. I did get a little bit bored in the Lamentus 1 episode. It just wasn't the episode for me, but it was fine. I loved the He Who Remains reveal. I was getting excited for that. And when the series finale dropped and we watched it and it was done, I was like, "Do you know who that is?" To Max. And I was like, "Let me tell you." So I told him all about Kang and the Kang variants and everything and on and on and on. But yeah, really excited about that. The scene in the first episode where he's watching would have been his life play out, like where they play his whole life for him. It was the most amazing scene, especially in these newer phases, maybe in all of MCU. And Tom Hiddleston's acting in that scene in particular is one of the best pieces of acting I've ever seen in the MCU. Like, this is someone who hasn't gone through this, but knows that is him and that this is a possible future. And he's being told this is what happened to you. And he's having to watch his mom die. And it was just amazing. And he did such a good job. And then the tape just ends and it just, it was so good. That, if that's all Loki season 1 was, that would have been enough for me. It was amazing.
I really enjoyed it too. I honestly thought it was a fantastic show. And I wouldn't change much, like you said, at all about it. I mean, the on-screen presence of Hiddleston and Owen Wilson was great. Their chemistry was fantastic, I thought. And the show really got to play with mystery, continuity, time travel, all the weird comic booky stuff. And I felt there were so many moments and quotes that were really thought-provoking. The show just stuck the landing for me with beating Kang. And I thought the show has great acting, great writing, and it's just a super solid viewing experience for me. I was excited every week to watch Loki. And I'm really excited for season 2 of Loki coming out later this year. I'm interested to see what happens with the TVA and with Loki. And something else I was realizing when I was ranking these shows is, so Sarah, my wife, she doesn't watch all the MCU stuff, but she does the MCU. But my top 3 shows were shows that we watched together. The other ones she and I didn't watch together. And I wonder if that's maybe part of why I enjoyed these 3 more, just because we were experiencing it weekly together. But yeah, Loki was great.
Or maybe like she just has great taste and only watches the best of the best of you.
That very well may be it. She's like, I'm not going to watch Secret Invasion. That looks boring. Fair.
Another prop to Loki, the actress that plays Sylvie, Sophia Di Martino, She had literally birthed the baby right before she started filming Loki. So props to her. She was a fairly new actress to begin with. Like, she's not in a ton. Loki season 1 is what she is known for. And she went hard. They even had to make her costume with the availability for her to pump. They had to make it an accessible costume. And she's out there doing all these stunts and going hard at it. So props to her. Props to her,
Major
man.
props. Yeah, that's crazy. I did not know that. That's cool.
Yes,
Tidbit.
that's awesome.
What was your number 3?
Oh, you guys are, Hawkeye. Yeah.
Oh man, we were really shitting on one of your favorite shows.
Like, I feel like Hawkeye and She-Hulk were almost like, maybe we watched the opposite show and thought it was either you guys did or I did. It switched them or something. But no, Hawkeye really worked for me. I mean, yeah, I feel like I almost have to defend it. But no,
It's during Christmas time. It's
I
nice.
like this feel. Like, it felt almost like before Holiday Special came out with the Guardians, it kind of felt the MC, the first time they'd really done anything Christmas related, at least that I can remember. It worked for me. I loved Kate Bishop's character. I liked that she had this like almost naive optimism. And I agree with what you're saying. It's unrelatable for me that she grew up in a super rich family. I grew up in kind of a middle class-ish family, so I can't relate to like all the stuff she has. But I thought she was relatable in the fact that if as a teenager or like early 20s, if I had gotten superpowers, like how excited I would have been, while also still being somewhat naive about how to use them properly. And I feel like sometimes with some of the new characters, they figure out how to use their skill set so quickly. With her, it made sense how she learned the skill set. She's made some mistakes that made sense for someone who's brand new in this world to be making. And I loved her chemistry with Hawkeye. I loved her chemistry with Yelena. I loved, like, Yelena is probably my favorite new character from the whole phase 4 and 5, like, just awesome. And yeah, there was the stuff with Echo kind of worked, not as well as it could have, like the stuff with Kingpin and kind of setting that up. Like, it was a cool reveal. The finale was a little bit cheesy for me at times. So it had some flaws in there, but overall, like, I thought it was a really fun one. It did feel like it was trying to be bigger than it was. It didn't tease me with making me feel like, oh, this is going to be a huge epic show that's going to change everything about the MCU, and then disappoint. It's like, we're going to be a low scale, street level. And for me, it really delivered.
Fair.
Yeah, because like you said, we had really different takeaways, but I can definitely see why you had your thoughts that you did.
And I do agree. I'm glad that they had that Christmas seal, because in my life, I really like seasons and holidays. So I really like theming things. So now it's nice that I have a Christmas MCU thing to watch and bother people with.
So we're down up. I don't know what you call it. Down to number 2. And the one show I think that we all haven't yet discussed is WandaVision, which is my number 2.
Same for me.
Okay.
It's not your number 2, is it, Jesse?
No, it's not. One is number 1.
Yeah.
That was one for me. Spoiler alert. Continue.
Awesome show. This is my wife's favorite MCU show by far. And I'm always going to look back on this time watching this show as something really special, because Sarah's not into the nerdy stuff as much as me sometimes, which is fine. But in this show, we were like going all out on our theories, and it was something where we watched this and looked forward to this big time every single week. And yeah, we just had an absolute blast watching and rewatching this show. And it really made me love Wanda and understand her character. I think it's the best event UTV we've had. I mean, it felt very much like a water cooler show to me. Like, hey, what are you watching? I'm watching WandaVision, which is really cool to experience with the MCU. And then, like I was kind of saying, the theories were wild. I was eating it up. I just think the show was just so well done. And it dealt with some really great themes. And I love that Wanda got a great character arc before being rushed a little bit in Doctor Strange. But yeah, just super solid television.
Yeah. So similar thoughts for me in terms of, like, it'd been so long before that the MCU had anything come out, because COVID just kind of was like a world record in real life. It just, so many things got screwed up, and not to mention the tragedy that all the people who ended up passing away because of it. And then WandaVision was like that breath of fresh air. I don't know where you guys were at, like how locked down or opened up you were when it came up, but we were slowly starting to reopen, but not fully. So we were still kind of limited to what we could do. So WandaVision was just nice. It was fun to be able to connect with people. It was cool. I remember Jesse and I hadn't talked for probably a few years before that. And then we were texting each other about it, which was cool to reconnect with you on that. And like all the fan theories were really awesome. Like dealing with Wanda's grief and just all that stuff was really cool. All the different decades stylized sitcoms was really fun. I'm a huge fan of sitcoms. I guess me and Wanda have that in common. And so it was fun getting to see them, like the MCU's version of each of those different eras of stuff. Overall, it worked really well. There's a couple criticisms, and I don't want to go into too much because it's number 2 for me. I loved it. But I thought they asked amazing questions, like probably the best show we've had setting up intrigue. And then it felt flat, like they didn't answer everything as interestingly as I wanted them to the last couple episodes. Like the Quicksilver thing was really disappointing for me. I loved the X-Men version of Quicksilver, and it just felt like they did him dirty. And with the Ralph Boner joke, I was like, oh, this is the most disappointed by an MCU joke. This hurt.
Yes, exactly.
And then the other thing for me too that didn't quite work as well. So with the last episode specifically, I feel like they kind of swapped who the real villain was with who was the anti-hero. Because I feel Wanda was the villain of the show. Even though we're looking at it from her point of view, that was really interesting, but they really kind of let her off the hook. Like what she did to that town was horrible. Like I love Wanda as a character, but she's torturing a whole town as her way of dealing with grief. And I think that's like the definition of what a villain is. And so it didn't work when Monica Rambeau's character was like, hey, don't worry about how they look at you. They don't know what you've gone through. It's like, well, they know what you've put them through though. And then I thought the sword director, like he's a jerk. He's that kind of jerk, overly aggressive, no one has anything to say to me type of alpha male that we love to criticize, and for good reasons. But at the end of the day, I felt like he was trying to save these people from Wanda. So even though he's a jerk about it, I feel like he was a deeply flawed hero and she was a very sympathetic villain. And then they tried to show her just as the hero and him as the villain. So that didn't quite work for me. But overall, it's still a really good show. I still loved it.
And you had a really good point as far as it being a show that really brought people together. Because you're right, like we had conversations. I had a lot of different conversations with people I hadn't talked to in a while. And fun, cute little thing, WandaVision is the reason I got my grandma to watch all phase 1 through 3 from Iron Man 1 all the way up through Endgame.
Oh.
And after WandaVision, we like binged all MCU stuff the whole summer. We binged it. And it was so amazing to see my grandma go through all of the same emotions I did for the last 10 years. Like by Endgame, when Endgame was over, she missed these characters. And I've taken her to back when I was living in Wyoming. I was taking her to all of the new movies that were coming out. And she kept coming out of them and being like, man, I really miss Natasha. Man, I really miss Cap. Like, she was feeling it. And I was like, go WandaVision for being the reason this happened. Yay.
That's so cool. What was your number 2, by the way?
Oh, my number 2 is Moon Knight. I loved this series. I didn't know a ton about the comic character. So that's part of the reason it was so wonderful, I think, is because I didn't have much expectations and it was just flooringly amazing. I already love history and mythology, so that I was really excited about. Egyptian mythology specifically, I've been in love with since the first time I heard the stories of Moses and Joseph and looked into Egypt in general. Steven is my absolute favorite. He's just so cute and sweet, and he's just like a little puppy dog, and I just love him. I just love him so much. I loved that it like had the flavor of WandaVision and Loki, where the whole series is just slowly unraveling and really keeping you guessing. It had the same tone as those two shows that they had already done so well, and it worked here also. I posted about it online back when I was actively watching it. I said that, and I think it kind of surprised people. I said that Moon Knight is my favorite character since Cap, and that's saying a lot That is saying a lot for Jesse Tashi. Like, Captain America is my favorite, but he's gone now. So Moon Knight, in these phases, at least, he is now my favorite character going into these new storylines. What I really loved, possibly the most, like past all the superficial story and characters and the show of it, is the inclusion of the series. The director of Moon Knight is Egyptian. He who played Layla is Egyptian Palestinian. The composer of the score is Egyptian. So back when you guys were talking about the music, he's Egyptian. He gets it. Like, the fact that they were able to tell a story accurately and representatively, I appreciate so much. Instead of being like, oh, we're going to tell this story about this Egyptian like mythology and stuff, but it's still just a bunch of white dudes in a conference room, doesn't work for me. The fact that they made an active effort to do this. I watched a video with the director, and he was talking about in the episodes where they finally get to Egypt and they get to Cairo, it was important for him to establish camera angles where you see the city and you see the pyramids of Giza right there, because too often in movies, they're portrayed as two different places. Like, you have Cairo, the city, and you have, oh, the Great Pyramids of Giza, like they're their own thing. No, they are in each other's backyard. The city ends and the pyramids begin. So it was really important for him to show an accurate picture of what it's like to live in Egypt. And I think the series nailed it. I think it did well, and it's fantastic. I have no idea if we'll even see Moon Knight ever again, but I hope we do. I hope this was not just a one-off. I hope he comes around again. It was so good.
Yeah, especially since that teaser at the end where you're like, oh, there's a third personality who's like this uber dark assassin. And you're like, oh, that's really interesting. So yeah, I'm hoping, even though I ranked it a little bit lower, I still liked it. And like, that cliffhanger was a good one.
Yeah, because, well, I have it as number one on my list, so I guess I'll just go there. But yeah, it is definitely hinted that there is a third character throughout the show. And I was like, are we getting a third character? Because I was looking into the comics and there's a third character. And they definitely laid that up for that little reveal at the end. But yeah, I mean, similar to you, Jesse, I was obsessed with Moon Knight, legitimately. It was very similar for me with WandaVision and with Loki, where like, okay, it's on. Sarah and I are going to sit down and watch this tonight. The finale didn't quite land for me, but I still really enjoyed it a lot. And literally everything else in the show did land for me to the highest level. I mean, this show for me had the highest of highs out of all the MCU shows. And then the dissociative identity disorder and the Egyptology was just handled in a way which I thought was super educational, yet really interesting and entertaining. And then the show really felt sure of itself. And I don't think Moon Knight is given enough credit for having, by far, the best suit in the MCU.
Yes.
So cool. So awesome. Yeah, I mean, for me, it rivals Tony Stark's Iron Man suit on a personal level.
Yeah.
Episode 5, exploring the whole underworld through the psychiatric hospital, that was trippy, super unique. I mean, this, again, felt like event television. I was theorizing and trying to figure out little details of the show every week. And you kind of talked about it too, John. Oscar Isaac's performances were incredible. And I mentioned it earlier, but I think they are the best in the MCU, TV for sure, and probably the MCU. And then May Kalamaui, I thought she was great as Layla / the Scarlet Scarab. And then Ethan Hawke's performance was fantastic as well. I know we talked about a lot of these shows and some of the MCU films in general, honestly, like having weaker villains. And I really thought Ethan Hawke's performance was fabulous.
So good. So good.
Yes. And like, you really totally saw where he was coming from, though, too, with his whole villain arc. And I think that's what makes some of the best villains. And then some of the shots in this show were just, I thought, incredible. Like the whole sky scene, that was beautiful. We got like, great visuals, great heart in the show. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing more of both Moon Knight and Layla, hopefully in the future. I know there's been the rumors of season 2, nothing really definitive. So I'm really hoping that we get to see Oscar Isaac sooner rather than later again somewhere in the MCU.
I'm rooting for it. Out of curiosity, what's its ranking on Rotten Tomatoes?
I think it was in the middle.
The middle. That's crazy.
Moon Knight was number 6. WandaVision was number 5.
That's great.
And then John, Loki is your number 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's number 3 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Are you wanting me to talk about Loki?
Go for it. Dive into it.
Okay. Yeah, so Loki just worked for me. Like, Loki pre-Thanos was the best villain in the MCU, in my opinion. I still think overall he was probably the second or third best villain we've had in the MCU. Like, he was just an awesome villain who turned into an anti-hero. And just, the character was always just, even in the first couple Thor movies that were kind of weak, like, his character was the best part of it, like him and his dynamic with Chris Hemsworth.
Hands down. Hands down. He is the only reason I watched Thor 1 and 2. Like, oh my goodness. Back in phases 1 through 3, Captain America and Loki. Those are my 2 top characters of all. Yes, amen. Continue.
Yeah. I was a little bit skeptical of the show because his death in Infinity War was such a critical moment where you're like, oh, believe Thanos is for real. This is dangerous. And it felt so final that like doing a show about him was like, what? How's this going to work? Doing the variant of him and then having him do all these misadventures through the TVA was just awesome. I don't even remember what Owen Wilson's character's name is because he just felt like Owen Wilson, honestly. But Owen Wilson is a good character in anything he said, even if he always kind of just plays himself. But it was so much fun. The dynamic of those two, Loki's dynamic with Sylvie, the last couple episodes when we got all the other Loki variants, that was really fun. There wasn't any episodes that really felt flat, like the one where him and Sylvie are in that world that gets destroyed just because they can't actually die, like felt a little bit anticlimactic maybe, but overall just really worked. And then the reveal of King at the end, like it was an awesome villain. The reason that I'm still excited about the MCU going forward, even though it's had a lot more downs than the previous few phases, is because of King and Loki. And it was awesome. I love the show. It just hit every week. And yeah, it started great. Like, I loved the questions asked about free will versus determinism, all the time traveling, like how does that affect stuff or not? All those questions, like, is this King they defeated, even though he's the villain, is he actually maybe not totally the villain? Like, does he maybe have a good reason for what he's doing? That's a really interesting thing to think about. Like, so asked a lot of questions, and then it gave good answers for most of those questions. And the fact that it ended better for me than WandaVision is the thing that bumps it up, because I was debating back and forth between those two, and just the ending of it is what elevated it above all the other shows for me.
Yeah, it does stick its landing really well.
Was fantastic.
And Jesse, so I know we talked about WandaVision a little bit, but as your number 1.
Okay, here we go. It's kind of bad that I'm going last because I feel like I'm going to bring the mood down, but here we go.
No.
First, I just had such a good experience with this show. We already kind of talked about how when it came out in such an interesting time where we're all coming kind of ish barely out of the pandemic, but it was the first Marvel content we had after getting Endgame. I mean, I know there was Far From Home, but technically that's Sony. Technically it's not MCU, but it is. But yeah, anyways, it was just such a wonderful moment of entertainment that we had this void of because of the pandemic. It was just so nice that even though we all couldn't be together in the theaters necessarily yet, it felt like we were all together watching this show. Like, a lot of people were watching this show, more than I thought there would be, because it felt very niche to me. I was like, oh, no one's going to be interested in this. I don't know why I felt like that, because literally everybody could love it because it's everybody's favorite show, meaning they pay homage to everybody. Like, if you love I Love Lucy, there you go. If you love Modern Family, there you go. It plays to everyone. So I don't know why I felt it was niche, but I did. But anyways, here's where it gets interesting. What I liked most is the story and weight and emotion of the piece. Wanda and her journey are really important to me. I feel I understand her completely. There are a lot of heroes that are like characters. I don't know if I should call her a hero, but there are a lot of characters where you can relate to certain pieces of them, and other pieces is like, oh, well, I can't relate to that at all. Everything about her I feel like I understand because I am her and in certain aspects I have been her. Like her arc is exactly what I've gone through. I mean, I didn't kidnap people and keep them against their will and traumatize them, obviously. But after a lifetime of pain and feeling misunderstood and feeling like the outsider, because I felt like that's what she felt like even in her time in the Avengers, is like she's the different one.
Yeah.
She's the outsider, even though she's having these really meaningful conversations with people that are reaching out to her, like Hawkeye and Cap. They're both like, you can do this, you are a part of the team. They always have good pep talks for her. She's always been very self-conscious, and that had always been my experience too. And then I finally found someone. Like I found my vision. I found my husband who understands me and loves me for me. Like he understands me to my core and loves me so deeply. Like he's amazing. Everybody should know Max. He's the most amazing person on this entire planet. And then just like with her, in a devastating turn of events, we found out that I have this terrible chronic health condition and he also has one, and combined together, just not good. It's just a mess. And I am constantly isolated from this man that I love and understand the feeling of wanting to create a life with him and create a family with him. And that's just not possible because of the health condition I have. We can't even be intimate. It's not like it's an infertility issue or it's an issue where we can't have kids. We can't be even intimate. So I understand her psyche fully in that she can't be with Vision, and just wanting to make that possible in any way she possibly can just makes sense to me. Like I know to a lot of people watching this show, it's like, oh man, the decisions she made were drastic. But to me, everything made sense. Like I can understand that reasoning of going to the ends of the earth to be with this person and create this life that you want that's been taken away from you. And for all intents and purposes, you should get to have. There's no reason you shouldn't get to have it. I feel that and I understand that. It's the worst thing in the world to know that you have that love and not to be able to express it and not to be able to feel it fully because something is stopping you. In her case, it was his death, but I understand it. I was wheelchair bound at one point. I have to make a conscious decision. I have to do things every day. I have to do physical therapy every day just to live normally. And as this show was coming out, I was going through a bunch of new doctors and attempts at trying to fix all this stuff. And I was gearing up for multiple surgeries across the country. Like I was going to Arizona for a set of surgeries that were just supposed to be one surgery. And these surgeries were supposed to magically fix everything. It was supposed to be the thing that saved me. And of course it didn't work. And so I'm just back to where I am. And I mean, the whole show is about that and is so good. But there are moments in the show, specifically when she's talking, it's that flashback back to the compound when she's talking to Vision and she's talking about her grief. And she's like, it's this wave washing over me again and again. It knocks me down. And when I try to stand back up, it just comes for me again. And it's going to drown me. Oh, that line, I was bawling by that point. Like I was not okay. I was like, that is best way. I've used that line to people continuously now moving forward because they can't understand what I'm going through. And so I've taken that line and I've been like, this is what it's like. Luckily, I'm in a lot better place now than I was. You know, I made some life changes. I got a job that have been really impactful to me. But when that show came out, I was in it. I was deep in that grief. And so to be able to have a line to say to people to explain what I was going through and to why I wasn't okay, why I wasn't the smiley, happy, excited Jessie everybody knows and loves, and why can't I just be that again? It was so great to have that line to be like, look, I'm trying, but every time I get my head above water, it just comes back again. And then in the ending episode, when Vision is like, what is grief if not love preserved? It's a paramount line to my life, because hardship doesn't exist unless there was something to lose to begin with. So for all intents and purposes, that entire series was my therapy, in that, yes, it gave me that line to justify how I was feeling. Like, to people, it gave me that line of, this is what my grief is. But then in the last episode, it's, this is how you can move forward. You can recognize that, yes, you have this grief and you have this pain, but it's only because you had something amazing to begin with. Like, I have a love that not everybody gets to have. I have Max, and not everybody will have a Max in their lifetime. So at least I can hang on to that, even if our relationship and how we have to express our intimacy and our love towards each other has to be different than everybody else. So this show was incredibly important to me, and I'm glad it gave me the closure I needed, because I needed something to get me out of that. And I don't want to say a TV show got me out of my grief, but in a way it did. And thank you, Marvel, for giving that to me.
That's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with us, Jesse. Like, I've been friends with you and Max for a while. I mean, ever since I went out to work at Maplewood that one year, and we were in that play together. That was a lot of fun. And I knew Max. We worked at Camp North Star together for several summers. And you guys have always been really special to me, even if we haven't stayed in super close touch over the years. But one thing I just love about you guys, and even admire, is you guys have gone through this really challenging thing with your health and then his health condition as well. And just how your attempt at being able to be transparent and just honest and share your journey with people. And the fact that through it all, you found a way to allow your love for each other to grow, even though this really important way that both of you are probably really excited to be able to express your love in that way isn't able to be there, but you still find a way to love each other anyway. And you both find a way to still make your lives about serving others. It's really inspirational to me, for whatever it's worth. I admire you guys. You guys are really awesome people.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
No thanks.
Yeah, like John was saying, thank you for feeling comfortable sharing that, Jesse. I mean, something that I really think is awesome and unique to film is that these stories really can connect with us in such impactful ways. And that's something I've been really enjoying about doing the Cinema Club podcast, is that we get to talk about these stories. We get to talk about how we experience them differently in life, just because we all have different experiences. But I think even you coming on here and sharing that, it's just a great reminder that we all have something that we're experiencing, and that you aren't alone in that. And it's okay if you want to talk about, voice, and be supportive of one another and be supported. So yeah, thank you, Jesse.
I think going through what I've gone through has really helped me. I was already a pretty empathetic person before, but it really helped me be even more empathetic on the side of, like, people are going through stuff that you literally can't see unless they feel comfortable enough to share. Just because someone's disability or emotional turmoil or whatever it is they're going through maybe isn't physically visible, a lot of people are going through some shit. And we need to be a lot kinder to people because of it. And there's opportunity for a lot of grace that we need to give people, because, yeah, everybody's going through something.
Yeah, you really just being open and honest about something you have to struggle with probably for the rest of your life, from my understanding. I think that's a really great testament and reminder to people that you're not alone. So thank you. With that being said, I also wanted to talk about the upcoming MCU TV Disney Plus shows coming out both this year, still in 2023, and next year in 2024. We do have Loki season 2 coming in October, which it was kind of funny. All three of us had Loki in top 3, and then Jesse and I had Moon Knight. What was your number 3, John? Hawkeye?
Hawkeye.
That is so funny, but that's how it ended up with the three of us. I think it's great. I think it's a testament to the film, how it affects us all differently, our different experiences with it. But yeah, so we have Loki season 2 coming in October. And then we have Echo coming in November, and that's the end of 2023. Then, at least currently scheduled for 2024, we have Ironheart, Agatha, Coven of Chaos, Daredevil, Born Again, and then Marvel Zombies. But I did want to dive into Loki season 2, and I think it's great that we all really enjoyed it. I was excited about this because according to Deadline, this trailer for season 2 was posted on August 1st, and it's the first trailer for the second season of Loki. And it very quickly hit a new milestone with it becoming the biggest online trailer debut ever for any series on Disney Plus. Yeah, that includes all the Star Wars stuff. So it had 80 million views. John's hyped for this show. With that being said, I definitely think that season 1 set up a second season very well. But I wanted to ask you guys if you have any thoughts after watching the trailer, any expectations and or hopes for season 2.
So I'm stoked for it. I love the way that they ended season 1, and I'm really excited to see them just exploring the ramifications of. They killed Kang. He's a villain. He's not a great guy, but he's less bad than most of the other Kangs. And now, what are the ramifications of this fractured timeline? And I loved the phasing stuff that they were doing with it. And I don't remember the actor's name, but if you guys saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, he's Wong from that. And
yeah.
it's so, or no,
He's great.
Wayman, excuse me. Wayman. Yeah, but
I know what you're talking about. I got you.
Yeah, sorry, wrong guy. But that's really cool. And especially like the scene he was in where he's explaining the time jumping stuff. Like that's what his character does in that. So it just feels like he's almost playing that character, but in the MCU. And that was one of my favorite movies from last year. And then partnering that with my favorite MCU show. And I'm hyped. I think this is going to be a really good show.
His excitable energy in the trailer also gave me huge Data vibes from Goonies, because he was Data in Goonies too. So, yeah, I was like, oh, I'm getting strong Data vibes here. Goonies was my childhood. Like, I watched Goonies all the time. It's probably the reason I'm obsessed with pirates. But anyways, I digress. Very excited that he is now in it. I hadn't realized he was cast in it, so that was a fun reveal in the trailer. I was glad to be surprised. I think it looks so interesting. This is a great trailer, to be honest. Like, they're showing a lot, but not giving away too much, I feel like, because sometimes trailers tell you the whole dang story, and I'm like, okay, bro, like, slow down. This should just be a come see my thing, not you don't have to see my thing because you just watched the whole movie in 2 minutes. But anyways, I digress. I'm very excited that in this trailer alone, I was already seeing 2 different time periods. I was seeing 1800s World's Fair period, and I was also seeing 1940s-ish Hollywood movie premiere time period. I'm loving that. Like I said, I love history, so that's why I wanted to like Eternals so much, and it didn't pan out, but that's okay. And Loki season 1, same thing. They went back to Pompeii, loved that. Loved that they had that one scene early on. I don't remember which episode it was, but they went to Oshkosh, Wisconsin in like the 80s for a Renaissance festival. That was fun. So yeah, I'm excited. I think it looks great. It looks like it's just gonna continue to be a solid entry into the MCU, building off of season 1.
Yeah, I think you guys said all my thoughts and more really well. I am excited because it seems like in season 1, Owen Wilson's character was really leading Loki, Tom Hiddleston's character. And I think in season 2, we're going to get that swapped. I think Tom Hiddleston's going to be leading Owen Wilson a little bit. And so I'm really interested to see that dynamic. So yeah, I'm hyped for the show. I mean, out of all the MCU shows coming out in 23 and 24, this is the one I'm most looking forward to, honestly. So I'm excited that it's coming in October, early October too.
Speaking of Owen Wilson, did you guys notice the short little clip in there where they're at, I don't know who all's going to be there, but there's a clip of a jet ski store.
Is there? Oh, I didn't catch
Yeah.
that. That's awesome.
I hope that means something for our Owen Wilson.
Yeah, I'd love to see him on jet ski. That'd be fabulous.
Yeah.
Besides Loki, are you guys hyped or looking forward to any of the other shows? I know Agatha Coven of Chaos has been something that's been on my radar that I'm interested in. I did hear it might be a musical, potentially.
Yeah, I'm torn on that show because none of us mentioned her in our WandaVision review because we had so many bigger themes, but she was a really fun character. And that
Oh, yeah.
it was so random that it was Agatha all along, became like a #1 hit on iTunes briefly.
Yes.
But she's super fun. I love the character. And the actress definitely has the acting chops to lead a
Yeah.
TV show. I don't know if that character is one that's interesting enough to have her own show that's really good or not. I'll watch it. I don't know what my expectations are for it though.
I am excited for that one, like you're saying, just to see what they do with it, since I have no idea what they'll do with it necessarily. I mean, back when WandaVision was out, there were a ton of fan theories of the character in the comics called Mephisto, and he's kind of the comic version of the devil, but he's a hokey version because he's not even the main devil. I don't know. It's weird. Anyways, I wonder if they'll bring Mephisto in somehow. Because in the comics, she is an agent of Mephisto. She's like Mephisto's right hand person. So, and one of the theories with WandaVision was, are Billy and Tommy gonna turn out to be spawn of Mephisto? Because in the comics, they are. In one of the comics, in one of the series. It was similar to WandaVision, where Wanda's living in this weird reality and she doesn't really know what's going on, and Agatha is their babysitter. And then it's all revealed that she helped him imbue his spirit into the kids, and so they're the demon spawn and whatever. Anyways, so maybe they'll do something with that. I'm interested to see what they'll do with that. In a way, I'm excited for Echo, not because of Hawkeye, because they did not do anything to make me excited in that show. But I just really like Echo, period. I like the idea of her. I like that she's a disabled hero, that she's a Native American hero. Native American narrative is something we do not get often, and I want more of it. I've always felt very passionate about Native Americans. My great-great-grandma is Cherokee, and I'm just really passionate about their history and things that have gone on in their life because of what has happened to them in history. So I'm very, very excited. I would like more of that. I hope it does well. I would be very sad if the show itself doesn't do well, and so they just kind of let that character fade away into the distance, because I want her to have a strong platform. We shall see. I hope they do it justice. I'm not super excited for Ironheart, but that's just because I don't like one of the actors in it. I really like Riri Williams, and I like Ironheart in general, but I just don't know enough about it to be like, oh, I have to see this show.
Yeah, her character didn't do a lot for me in Black Panther. Like she was all right, but there wasn't anything about the way her character just dynamic with the other characters. It's like, oh, I really want to spend a lot more time with this character.
Yeah,
But
I don't think they should have necessarily had her in Black Panther, because I think that was the problem, is we're telling a much bigger story and she definitely didn't need to be there, and so it didn't lend itself to introduce her well.
I think other than Loki, the one I'm probably most looking forward to is the Daredevil reboot and seeing what's the MCU's take of this iconic Marvel character. I never actually have seen the Netflix Daredevil show. I need to go back and watch it because
It's
I've
good.
heard really good things about it. But I don't know. I'm excited to see what they do. I liked his appearance in She-Hulk, and I liked his appearance in No Way Home. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that.
I'm really excited because it's the first one that's 18 episodes, or at least that's what they originally announced. I hope they keep it there, because yes, let's get long series instead of this silly 6-episode series. I want 18 episodes. Yes, please. As long as it's good.
I want 18 episodes of episode 5 of Secret Invasion.
I'm interested to see what they're going to do with Daredevil exactly too, because that was the one Netflix Marvel show I really enjoyed was Daredevil. I did get taken aback a little bit with his new suit in She-Hulk, so I'm interested to see if they're going to keep that new suit from She-Hulk, or if they maybe go back to more of the look that he had in the Netflix show. I think a lot of people were going to Twitter and complaining about it in She-Hulk, honestly, because it was a very different look. But I don't know if that's more of a comic accurate look or not, but
No.
okay, then I don't know why they were doing that, but I really
think they
enjoyed the
were
Netflix show.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to establish themselves as different, like, oh, this is a different Daredevil than the Netflix one. But his name is literally Daredevil, so you gotta have red in there.
I have really enjoyed his appearances, like you were saying, John, in both She-Hulk and in No Way Home. So I'm really excited for that one and Loki. Those are my two MCU TV shows that I'm looking forward to out of what's been announced.
I guess I'm also looking forward to What If 2, but
Yeah,
although you're not a big fan of
sure.
Chris, yeah, What If 2 I think could be pretty cool.
I am so excited for What If season 2. I love What If. It's like everything fangirl, but on screen. It's like all the fan fiction and fan theories and literal what if, but on screen out there for me to see. And I love it and I want more of it. And that is my life.
Awesome. I enjoyed doing this. It's been a fun discussion, and I think ranking videos and podcasts are always fun when we get to sit down and geek and nerd out over content.
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing how even though we all liked the majority of these shows, which ones actually really hit for us versus not. Like there's a few like Loki and WandaVision hit really hard for all three of us. It's interesting just hearing you guys' very different opinions on like Hawkeye and She-Hulk than mine. It's fun.
I love it because even if there are differing opinions, it helps me look at the show a little bit more objectively and be like, you know what? That was good. This part of it was good. They have a good darn point. And that's why I was excited to do this podcast in the first place for Secret Invasion, because I was not excited for the show. And so when Chris asked me to
I
come
was all
on,
hyped up.
I was like, I have to pretend I like this. But no, it was good because it ended up being a great show, except for episode 5 and 6. I mean, it's number 7 for me, so it's very mid, but it wasn't awful. I've seen lots worse television. Lots worse.
Hawkeye.
Right.
No, I'm scared of shit.
You're hurting me.
It was interesting to me that our mid-level ones were all relatively the same too. Our
Yeah.
bottoms and our tops were different, but our mid was like, yeah, like these were good shows, but they weren't like WandaVision and Loki to us.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I don't really know how to wrap this one up.
I think you just do a hard cut at some point.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in,
Just
guys.
do a sound.
No, I just wanted to thank you guys for being up to do this, for coming in. I know we had to reschedule a couple times. I really appreciate our time together over the last few weeks. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes. Thanks for having us. It has been an absolute blast and an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me on, Chris. It's been amazing reading with you and Jesse. This has been a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Both super fun to have on. And then did you guys want to plug socials?
Our adventure book, MJ underscores in between all of those words.
No, it's the Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm still not super active on social media right now, but if you happen to be in Northeast Indiana, the 3rd Saturday of August, I'm preaching at Angola SDA Church. So,
Hey, what a great plug.
Well, yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you both so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
And for everyone listening, if you haven't already, go ahead and join the Cinema Club Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/the Cinema Club TCC. And I already listening to us, obviously, but we are basically everywhere that podcasts can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher. We also are on YouTube at the Cinema Club Podcast. And please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. It really does help us reach more listeners. And feel free to invite more new members to the club. If you would be interested in being on the Cinema Club in the future, feel free to email Nick and I at thecinemaclubtcc@gmail.com. We are completely supported by you, our listeners. So if you are enjoying the show and if you are feeling generous, please consider clicking the support button on our website. You can find that at podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/the Cinema Club. Also wanted to let you know we will be getting more to our regularly scheduled programming, reviewing more movies in the very near future. Nick and I have been scheduling those for both August and September. So really exciting stuff coming soon. But again, thanks so much, and we will see you on the next one.